Hello and welcome. And my name is Dr. Allison Reef, and I'm the Associate Dean of the Division of Education Professions here at UAGC. I'm the host for this session, Building a Shared Vision for Teaching Excellence. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the show caption button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Jessica White, the inaugural Assistant Dean for the Innovation in Teaching and Learning and a clinical assistant professor with the School of Nursing at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She holds an Ed.S. in instructional design and technology and a PhD in educational leadership. Jessica has worked with adult learners and faculty in roles including instructor, career counseling or coaching, and instructional design. Jessica enjoys partnering with faculty to create courses and learning materials for student success. And on that, we will pass it over to Jessica.
Okay, thank you, Allison. And thank you all for being in attendance. It's afternoon where I am on the East Coast. It could still be early morning for some of you. But really excited to explore this topic and kind of work through some things, as I really feel that teaching excellence is something that a lot of us talk about and really want to have for our faculty and for our institutions, but sometimes we don't have a shared vision around it. So today, what we're going to work through are exploring why a shared vision matters for teaching excellence, apply some innovation leadership principles to vision building, and gain some practical tools for leading collaborative change. And I believe microphones are muted, but you might be able to come off mic or put your answer in the chat because I'd like to start us off with a question. And that question is, how do we define teaching excellence in a way that unites rather than divides? Take a second to think about that and then any responses that you have, I'd love to see them in the chat, or I'd love to see or hear you. And think about it from even your own institution. If I asked even two people in this room, I doubt you all would have the same answer or the same definition. Continued growth is an answer I see in the chat. It embodies caring and all the aspects of caring, such as engagement, being present, um, being available for students, shared purpose, practices that promote student learning, and ensure students master identified learning outcomes. Yes, that ID lens is very hard to turn off. Culture of care, collaboration, supporting differentiated student needs in a way that makes sense to them. Absolutely. Any other insights?
Jessica, I see a gray box covering
Ah.
your question. I don't know if it's Teams or something popping up,
It's
but
probably Zoom. Let's give it a second to
okay.
adjust.
It's
And it's
gone
because I
now.
pulled up the chat window.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And it looks like one, yeah, it was the chat box. Using an asset model approach with differentiation. Yeah, absolutely. All of those things. So let's start with our current reality. Where are we today with teaching excellence and how we define it? And to be honest, a lot of it is defined, and those of you who teach or are in leadership, it's really defined in departmental silos. It seems like no matter, even if an institution passes a specific rule of thumb or definition, inevitably every department head, every dean interprets it differently and then holds that level of faculty to a different standard. Um, Working in School of Nursing, it seems that sometimes we have a different definition than even our College of Education or business people do. And it's not that these definitions are wrong or bad. They just happen to sometimes come out from the top. And by the time that they're disseminated all the way down to faculty members, they've become convoluted and disconnected. Another thing is we typically have a lot of different expectations for different roles. What a dean really thinks excellent teaching looks like can be very different for a junior level faculty member who may have just finished a PhD, just finished a postdoc. Can also be different from what students experience in the classroom. Then, if you add in another complicated issue to the mix, faculty turnover. People retire, people quit and go to something else. I'm experiencing retirement in my division right now that I oversee. And this is causing not bad problems, but it's just an institutional knowledge loss. And then you build to a certain point in momentum, people leave, you lose that momentum, and it takes a little bit of time to gain it back. Even with new faculty being hired, they bring what they're used to with them. And it's hard to sometimes integrate the institution they're coming from and the one that they've joined. And with all these different transitions, we really do run the risk of losing the thread that we're trying to build and building the consistency and the way that we want for um, for teaching excellence. So without unified vision, we really can't function as a learning organization. We become people doing work in silos, which is really not cool and leads us to where we're not able to innovate or grow. So why does that matter? And what's really at stake? One of the big reasons, or one of the things that is at stake, is our faculty development programs. If we don't have a shared understanding and a shared vision of teaching excellence, how do we then design and develop effective, meaningful professional development opportunities for our faculty? We end up with a one size fits none type of programming because everybody's coming in from different levels, expecting different things. Our definition is here, theirs is over there, and they are very disconnected. The next thing is that it impacts student success. When students move through courses and they have different faculty, and this will happen with different teaching philosophies and no cohesion, learning does suffer. And all of us have been in school where sometimes it is a reprogramming of ourselves and relearning things because one faculty member teaches completely different from another or follows a different philosophy. Another thing that is at stake is the institutional culture. Without a shared vision for teaching excellence, we really miss those collaboration opportunities where junior level faculty and senior level faculty could work together and collaborate instead of feeling as though they are on islands and unable to learn from each other. And the last thing that's at stake is sustainability. We have initiatives that come and go, things that are pushed, then sometimes they're taken away or they're pushed. We get to a certain point, they fall off the radar. But if we really don't have a shared vision of what teaching excellence looks like in our organizations and in our cultures, nothing sticks. And we are constantly starting over, spinning our wheels, and not getting anything done. So tell me what happens when we have fragmented visions. And I see a comment in the chat that would be a good jumping off point, depending on what else is put in the chat. With fragmented visions, yes, no consistency. Everyone's paddling the boat in different directions. What else happens? Everybody kind of has their way of doing things, but nobody's on the same page. Yes, less effort. People put their heads down, do their own thing. There is a lot of, yes, Rita, confusion. And students do struggle with those different expectations. And ultimately, yes, people leave or divisions are created. Sometimes this is because I saw in the chat a second ago. Sometimes this vision varies because faculty, unless you go in the education route, you're not typically trained to be a faculty member. You're trained to become an expert in your area of expertise, your field. But most of the time, faculty members are not given a how to teach adult learners or differentiating instruction. They don't take those types of courses because they're focused on electrical engineering or construction management or business. So that takes us to the foundation of our learning organization, which is the way that we're able to really address this. Peter Senge talks about 5 different principles, and the two that are really important for this are shared vision and systems thinking. Shared vision is about creating a common identity and a sense of destiny. Um, Not necessarily a vision statement that's put on the wall, but it's something that everyone really believes in because they help co-create it. Systems thinking is about seeing the entire picture and understanding how different pieces connect and influence one another. When we look at these two within the context of teaching excellence, something powerful happens. We can stop thinking about teaching in isolation and our individual classrooms and really start thinking about it as an organizational capability. And that's what our institutions are here for. We do things as institutions, as groups. So, some principles that drive this as far as being innovative with our leadership and creating this shared vision for teaching excellence. Strategic foresight is one. That means we're not just responding to today's challenges. November 2022, I believe 3 years ago, everybody was responding to ChatGPT. Oh my goodness, my students have their comp exams and now they'll be able to cheat. They won't be able to do their finals. How will I know they're doing their finals and they're not putting it in ChatGPT? That was a challenge that proves to continue to be one for most of us as we learn how to work with it and not against it. But instead of responding, we kind of anticipate what's coming. What will students need 5 years from now? How are our fields of expertise changing? What does accreditation require? If we switch accreditation bodies, what's the difference? What different things are they looking for? So that strategic foresight really helps us build a vision that is more forward-looking instead of backward or reactive looking. The next is inclusive decision making. Super, super critical. If the vision is created by administrators only and then it's pushed top down, it's not shared. It's something that they want, and sometimes the faculty they're pushing that to don't fully understand the definition the administrators have come up with. So we need to make sure that we include everyone in the room diverse voices, diverse perspectives, faculty across different departments and across teaching levels, and across different career stages, students, staff, and anybody else who teaches the teaching and learning front. And then the last is adaptive change management. Change is hard in higher education, and we go about it very slowly, but we do have to remain responsive to things that evolve and make sure that we are flexible enough to adjust our approach, even while we stay true to the main vision that we are wanting to drive. So, who shapes the vision? If we don't leave it to administrators behind closed doors, everyone should have a part in shaping the vision. Faculty bring diverse pedagogical perspectives because they're in the classroom, in the trenches with students every single day. They know what works as our student population demographics change. They know what doesn't work. They also know what students need if they are not stuck in doing what they have always done. If they're being innovative. Administrators bring that strategic alignment. They understand institutional priorities. They know about the resource realities, and those are real right now. They also know how teaching excellence connects to the broader institutional goals. Instructional support teams, people like individuals I have on my team, instructional designers, educational technologists, simulation specialists, they all bring implementation support. So they're the ones who help us put the vision that we want into practice. You'll notice this is a Venn diagram and not three separate circles. Reason why it's a Venn diagram is because the magic happens when these three groups intersect. When we work on something and we really collaborate with one another, we create things that none of us could really create alone, and we're better off for it. So, what does a strong vision for teaching excellence include? It should reflect institutional values. If your institution mentions or is known for valuing innovation, equity, community engagement, those types of things should show up in how you define teaching excellence, the things that you are going to be monitoring and managing your faculty members for. It should also embrace diverse pedagogical perspectives. There is not a one size fits all or one way teaches all when it comes to teaching. Our students are very different, and we are different people teaching them. We also teach completely different disciplines. So there's different teaching context and different student populations. The way that we would go about teaching grad students is completely different from the way that we would teach first semester undergrads. It should support continuous faculty development. Vision should really point us towards growth and not judgment. It should really be aspirational and something that we continuously strive for. And it should focus on student success. Students are why we do what we do, why our institutions exist. And we should be really enabling innovation and adaptation. We should be trying different things, new things, being okay learning from failure and learning how to do things better. So, strategic foresight in action. How do we apply strategic foresight? The first step that we want to do is completing an environmental scan. What are the trends going on in our particular areas? Working in nursing, that means looking at what AACN and CCNE requirements are. Also looking at our employers, at family practices, at the hospital, different places where nurses work, for those employers to tell us what they're looking for when they hire somebody. Looking at what students are telling us that they need. This can be from clinical expectations or clinical experiences, where they go in halfway through their curriculum and realize that, oh, I need more pharmacology, or I need more how to talk to patients of different backgrounds. And then also, what's the research telling us? So, doing that environmental scan really allows us to learn a lot. The next thing we're able to do is really ask forward looking or forward thinking questions. Teaching today in 2025 and teaching excellence today in 2025 looks completely different than it did in March 2020 when all of us were sent home. March 2020 looked completely different from when I was in my undergrad and when I was doing student teaching. So things change. We have to look at how might technology change what's possible? We have AI. A lot of people are already looking at robots, which have been around for a while, but we have to be forward thinking. That way we are more proactive instead of reactive. And then also consider what competencies will our graduates need in 5 years that they don't need today. Students 5 years ago coming out of grad school or even undergrad, AI wasn't really this huge thing that it is today, where now we have minors, classes, entire degree programs. So really have to be looking and forecasting down the line. While I'm not a nurse, I do work with nursing faculty and with nursing students. So, in my context, healthcare is really working towards a more team-based and a professional care lens. I went for my physical a few weeks ago. My doctors are in two different cities, and my primary care mentioned that she had received a note from one of my specialty doctors, informing her of something. They are doing a lot more interprofessional team-based care. That way they're all on the same page, regardless of when I see them through the year. And I see healthcare moving more rapidly towards that. So our vision for teaching excellence needs to include how we prepare students for their reality, not just for the things that they need to know today, but for how it's evolving. And that's not just nursing. I went to school to be an educator. The things that I learned in undergrad are still very much applicable today, but they've changed over time, where it was differentiated instruction and special needs students. When I was in undergrad, now we focus more on UDL and accessibility for all instead of just the few. So keeping foresight and looking ahead is really what helps us move forward and get that shared vision for teaching excellence. So let's talk about inclusive decision making, because a lot of our vision building efforts really fall apart when we try to include others and when we try to make decisions. So you'll want to start with stakeholder mapping. Make a list of everyone who should have input. And I tell everybody, don't always include the usual suspects. Some people are on different leadership teams because they're always the ones people go to. Doesn't mean that other people are not available, can't also do the same thing, but they're the usual suspects. So we want to go beyond that group of people and reach deeper into the loads of staff and faculty that we have. Then think about the different ways that you can gather data and gather diverse input. Focus groups are powerful. They take a lot of time. They're not the only tool, though. You can also use surveys. I'm helping a colleague design a design thinking workshop right now that we'll host starting in January. You also have coffee conversations. Something that I instituted at UNC School of Nursing is faculty time sessions, where really the TY and faculty, I changed to TEA, and we drink tea or coffee or whatever beverage they bring, and discuss different teaching techniques and different struggles that they're having in the classroom. And don't forget something that we typically do overlook, and that's that psychological safety. A lot of times we have to create that space in order to foster and have honest dialogue because people aren't always comfortable opening up and saying what they honestly think. And we need to give them that space to where they feel safe doing that. Feeling safe to admit, I don't think this is working. I think our decision is an utter disaster. I think we need to revisit this. Whenever we allow people to only tell us what they think we want to hear, we're not building a shared vision. They're going based off of us and not the collective. So we want to make sure that we're listening to those unexpected voices. Creating the unified teaching excellence vision also requires some different change management strategies. Having a shared vision is great, but it really doesn't mean anything if it doesn't lead to change and cause people to move beyond the status quo. So, adaptive change management can be very effective in assisting with this. Cotters has an eight-step model. There are other frameworks. The key to any change management is really building that momentum through early wins, but also creating sustainable structures that can withhold the change long term. What does this look like in practice? Sometimes this looks like we pilot a new approach to faculty onboarding that facilitates different things that they need to know, but also reflects a shared vision. If we're able to see if it works, we're also able to measure impact. Then sometimes that leads to energy to doing more. Another thing that we might consider is revising our teaching evaluation criteria to align with the vision. That way, we're actually evaluating our faculty on the things that we say matter and not other things. That creates a structural change that then reinforces the vision every semester when students get their student evals back every year as we go in for faculty evaluations. We need to think about quick wins and systemic changes because both of them are critical to moving forward and ensuring that we have the shared vision of teaching excellence. So, I'll ask you to discuss some things in the chat. Have three questions for you. What does teaching excellence mean in your context? Knowing that not all of us are in faculty roles, not all of us are student facing. But think about your context, whether you work in the registrar's office, you work in IT, whatnot. What does teaching excellence look like there? Then also consider how is it currently defined, either formally or informally. And also think about what would it take to create a shared vision in your setting. So I'm going to give us a few minutes to kind of drop our thoughts and feelings about these different questions in the chat and discuss. So again, considering what does teaching excellence mean or look like in your context? How is it currently defined? And what would it take to create um, a shared vision in your setting? And again, feel free to add to the chat, or if you want to come off mic, do so. I have one comment here. Teaching excellence means meeting students where they are, yes, and supporting them where they need to be, yes. Okay, and that's pretty global at UAGC, regardless of the role that you hold. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Other definitions? I'll give an example while we wait for others to respond in the chat. Um, some where I am believe that teaching excellence means consistently high scores on student evaluations. And that is not completely realistic. Faculty will sometimes have an off semester. Not only that, but we can't help the students that are in our classes in different cohorts. And that sometimes affects teaching evaluation scores. So I think it's the way that we look at those in a longitudinal manner and not just a one semester, you get a 3 out of a 5. So automatically you're no longer teaching excellently and need to go into remediation. So being able to define it formally helps. Here in North Carolina, the UNC system created a teaching effectiveness policy that's effective for all faculty across all of our system schools. Each institution is able to personalize that, but it does give everybody a kind of ground level to work from. In the chat, teaching excellence is guiding learners to develop practical, reflective, and goal-oriented skills that prepare them for real-world career success. Absolutely. Career planning and business courses. Oh, cool. That is right up my um, alley, Rita, which is so cool. Yes. And Allison, those teaching evaluations, students liking you does not mean that they learned. It does not. And typically the students who don't like you are the ones who are going to leave you the lower numbers. There is another comment in the chat, a formal instructor quality review document used to evaluate teaching and instruction annually, which is awesome. I'd love to be able to see that, Connie, if I could. And also, it includes creating meaningful learning experiences for students, which is crucial to inspire growth, reflection, confidence building. Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments, or did I miss any? Okay, so let's move to how do we take this vision into action? So once we have that shared vision, it's like, now what? We have it. What do you want me to do next? So here are some key places where that vision needs to show up. It should show up in faculty development initiatives, in workshops, in any learning communities that are created, in mentoring programs. All of those kind of like I am an ID by trade curriculum developer. Kind of like making sure that your objectives connect back to your assessments, which connect back to the course objectives, all of those types of things. So making sure that what we are doing for faculty development has that teaching excellence built into it. And that is what undergirds our work. It should also be present in hiring and onboarding practices. So are we hiring faculty for alignment to the vision? And are we really introducing faculty to it from day one, or is it something that they learn about in their first evaluation, which is too late? And promotion and evaluation criteria. If the vision, and I mentioned this before, says one thing, but the evaluation forms measure something different, people will go with those evaluation forms every single time because that's really where they're being evaluated. So we need to make sure that those align. Resource allocation decisions, determining who and what gets funded, what gets prioritized, all of that should reflect the teaching excellence vision, as it should with recognition and celebration. Who gets submitted for teaching awards? Who gets recognized? Who gets highlighted in newsletters? We want to celebrate the behaviors that we want to see more of. And when vision shows up in all of these places, it really becomes real. It changes from just words to becoming the way with which we operate, the behaviors that we embody. So, I want you to think about 3 to 5 actionable strategies that you can implement as we start wrapping up here. And I'll give you all a few minutes to kind of think. I'll share mine, and then I'd love for you all to share yours in the chat. So, my top 5 actionable strategies that I can implement. First is starting with listening. Before trying to create a shared vision, really listening to different stakeholders and determining how they define teaching excellence currently. The second is making it inclusive from the start. So inviting everyone into the conversation, not excluding people. Also, not just presenting them with a finished product, but creating different iterations and sharing it throughout. Connecting the vision to actual decisions, and showing people how it matters in their work. Building in flexibility, clear enough to guide their behaviors and their actions, but flexible to allow for different approaches. And then the last one is revisiting regularly. Our teaching excellence vision should evolve as the institution, students, and our fields evolve. So take a few minutes, think about some actionable strategies you can implement. Would love to see them in the chat or for you to come off of mute and share them if you'd like. I see listening more to different stakeholders, need more student voice. Yes, I agree. And more avenues to communicate with part-time faculty. Yep, that's an issue.
One thing that I think is it will take way too long to type, but with our instructional designers, we work with an external group. So even when we might feel really good about our philosophy of education and teaching, having external people support us in interactive ways in our classrooms to do that kind of takes a little bit of massaging to have that be consistent.
Agreed. Agreed. Especially working with external groups because they're likely working with other groups and keeping yours straight from others can be challenging. Not that
Yes.
it can't be done, but yeah. Any other strategies anyone would like to share? Another one that I will say, I have start with listening and being inclusive in mind, but I feel it is important to get everyone in the room who has any ties to teaching excellence at all, to where everybody responsible for it is able to discuss what it looks like. Because then you don't have people in silos thinking that it means different things and holding one set of faculty accountable to their definition when it's not the same across the board. I like Connie's note, establishing a schedule to reach out to each associate faculty regularly via text just to check in and invite conversation. Absolutely. And the others as we go to wrap up. So think about this as you head back to your institution. Some questions to reflect on are really who needs to be part of the conversation about teaching excellence. Also think about who's missing from the table. What's one small move that you could take this week to start moving towards more of a shared vision of teaching excellence? And even consider what would change look like in your institution if you had a strong shared understanding of teaching excellence. So think about those questions, consider whatever your next steps should be, and then ensure that you create ways to sustain the conversation, whether that is through regular check-in meetings, meetings with leadership and faculty to get everybody in the same room together, those who are evaluating the lower level and also being evaluated. But those are the things that I want you to think about, especially the part with that inclusive decision making, who needs to be part of the discussion and making sure that they are at the table. So I will end. This is my contact info. Should any of you all have any questions, want to reach out or whatnot, or want to connect on LinkedIn, and happy to stop sharing and answer any questions any of you all have.
Well, oh, Sean, I saw you come off mute. Did you want to say something? I didn't mean to stop you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. White, and the audience for your participation in this session. Please check the link in the chat so that you can nominate TLC presentations for conference awards as well as share your feedback. We really appreciate everyone's time. Again, thank you so much, Jessica, and for leaving us with some great things to ponder.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for your attendance and participation today. Hope you have a lovely day.